ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணி. A very good evening to everyone. On behalf of Tamil Paramparya Arakattalai, Tamil Heritage Trust, I take great pleasure in welcoming all those who have joined us here today in person and online. As we are gathered here today for the 4th edition of the V Venkayya Epigraphy Award in 2025, I extend a warm welcome to our founder, Professor Swaminathan, our esteemed chief guest, Dr. T S Ravishankar, and today's awardee, Dr. Shrinivas V Padigar, a distinguished historian, epigraphist, and archaeologist. Before we move on to the evening's proceedings, I would like to share a short introduction about our organization, Tamil Heritage Trust, or THT. THT was founded in 2010 by Professor S. Swaminathan, Dr. Badri Seshadri, and a few other like-minded individuals. It was formed with a vision to promote, document, and disseminate Indian heritage and to provide a community for sharing ideas and learnings on related aspects. Our activities span a wide range of formats which include monthly talks, annual lecture series, focused workshops, and study tours to heritage sites. We have an online talk series on the first Saturday of every month on various aspects of heritage and history. Every year in December, when Chennai is filled with the strains of its music concerts or Paattu Kacheris, THT conducts its Pechu Kacheri, a 2-day talk series on a specific theme by various speakers. Last year, for example, the series focused on archaeological sites in Tamil Nadu, and in 2023, the splendor of the Hoysala monuments. Our other annual event is the Indology Festival, which is a week-long lecture series by eminent academicians and scholars held online in June. Our recently concluded Indology Fest last month explored India through the accounts of travelers from distant lands. Our previous editions have focused on themes like the Harappan civilization and the rich maritime history of India. We conduct one-day workshops for the public with an aim to introduce them to various aspects of our temples. The morning session consists of talks on the basics of temple architecture, sculptures, etc., with a field visit to a temple in the afternoon to observe these elements in practice. Our next edition of HouseArt is all set to happen next weekend here in the same venue. Similarly, we have a one-day How to See a Museum workshop which introduces basic elements of sculptures, iconography, etc., followed by a visit to the various galleries of the Chennai Museum. THT's another initiative is its docent training program. It is an extensive workshop conducted over multiple weekends. Conducted over multiple weekends, which not only imparts knowledge on the sculptural, architectural, and heritage aspects of our temples, but also equips the participants to become docents themselves and guide others in visiting our heritage sites. We also have classroom sessions on topics like Grantham Script, Indian astronomy, which are open to all, and a special program called Alamar Avai, held for introducing Indian heritage to school teachers so that they can further create an awareness in the students. Every year in January, we undertake a site seminar. This is largely an internal activity for THT members for our own self-education and enhancement. Once a location is decided upon, volunteers study various aspects of the site extensively for 2 to 3 months prior to the visits. After a lot of internal seminars and deliberations, we visit these sites armed with this knowledge and experience it in totality. Tamil Heritage Trust has also instituted 2 annual awards. The first of them named after our founder, is the THT Professor S. Swaminathan Heritage Award. It aims to recognize exceptional individuals who have contributed to preserving, deepening, and disseminating knowledge of our heritage through academic research, fieldwork, or other means. The second award, of course, is the V Venkayya Epigraphy Award, for which we are gathered here today. It commemorates Rai Bahadur Shri V Venkayya, the first Indian chief epigraphist to the Government of India. The award recognizes exceptional individual contributions in any language towards the discovery and interpretation of unrecorded inscriptions and their dissemination. All our talks can also be viewed on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe and click on the bell icon to be notified for all future events. Do also join us on social media. We're all present on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also write to us at admin@tamilheritage.in to be added into our mailing list to be notified of future events. Lastly, we are a completely voluntary organization and do not have a dedicated revenue stream, so we welcome any generous contributions towards our cause. You can use this QR code or the UPI ID below. With that, I wrap up the brief introduction to our organization. I now request Srimati Gauri Naren to speak about Shri Venkayya, his work and contributions to Indian epigraphy.
Open my slideshow. Slideshow open பண்ணிட்டேன். இதுவா?
Yeah, that's the PBS.
எங்க வரல? இல்ல இங்க ஏன் வரல? அங்க வந்துட்டல. It opened
Close the previous presentation. Previous.
I don't know. Just do this. No, don't close this.
கொஞ்ச நேரம் சும்மா இருக்கும். ஒரு நிமிஷம். அது ஃபுல் ஸ்க்ரீன்ல இருக்கிறத க்ளோஸ் பண்ணணும் ஃபர்ஸ்ட். அதுக்கப்புறம் அடுத்து ஃபுல் ஸ்க்ரீன்.
Just click on the PBS.
கௌரி ஒரு நிமிஷம். 2 நிமிஷம் ஆனா பரவாயில்ல.
No, just open the PPS, not the PP.
Can we close all the open presentations first? Then we could
Oh, சரியா வைக்கலையா?
everything close பண்ணியாச்சு இல்லையா? Now open that. பொறுமையா. Okay.
Yeah. I just check it the next slide. Yeah, okay, fine.
Okay. Use this. Don't use this.
Okay.
Either up, down, or the space bar.
Good evening, everybody. Now, in this select audience, amongst all of you who have gathered here, most of you are either epigraphists or heritage and history enthusiasts. Talking to you about V Venkayya is like bringing coal to Newcastle. However, having been given this opportunity, what I would really like to do is to tell you all my own experience, how I felt when I read about Venkayya's life and works. Initially, what took me over was the surprise and amazement at the course of his life. This gradually changed into pride and joy when I looked at the kind of work that he had done, how he had interpreted and documented the history of our own country. And then when I tried to see what is the relevance of all this today, the circle seemed to close itself. It is these three aspects that I'd like to talk to all of you about today. You know, they say that there are lives and there are lives. Probably most of us belong to the former category. The story of our lives is written the moment we are born, and we grow up following this script to a T. There are not too many deviations, adventures, or surprises in our lives. We live life and achieve what we are meant to do, and then we just pass on. And then there are lives like Rai Bahadur V Venkayya's life. At the blink of an eye, the course of his life changed completely. Seizing at the first opportunity that was given to him, he not only re-scripted the course of his own life, he went on to script the history of our own country, giving us a completely new idea about who we are and where we come from. And when we read about this life, it almost looks like a movie script which is unputdownable. Now, to know a little bit about his life and works, let us start at the start. He was born in 1864 in an Orthodox family and had an upbringing that was typical of those times, which meant he had a large family with several siblings, a large joint and extended family. There was a lot of stress on religion, academics and education growing up, and extreme poverty. Why I mention all this is because all these three facets went on to influence Venkayya's life subsequently. A large family meant Venkayya had to start earning a living and earning a substantial living as early as possible so that he could remit money back to his family for the education of his siblings. Stress on academics and education ensured that Venkayya was an exemplary student all along. Whatever information or knowledge was available to him, he quickly imbibed and absorbed it fully and tried to see what are all the maximum ways in which the same could be applied. He kind of maximized the potential of every piece of information that was available to him. Further, being born to a scholarly man, he was taught languages like Sanskrit, Tamil, Telugu and several others, scripts like Grantham, Brahmi, Nagari and probably several others, and was also exposed to all religious scriptures like Vedas, Puranas, other shlokas, etc. right from childhood. He also knew what are the mythological and other historical stories connected to these scriptures. All these things really helped him later in his career, where he was not just merely reading the inscriptions, but deciphering them and interpreting them and putting them in their correct context. Now, extreme poverty is a strange criteria to put here, but in his own words from his diary, it is the extreme penury and hardships that he faced in his early childhood and early part of his youth that went on to determine whatever he achieved in life. He says, my progress can be completely attributed to my poverty. And he says, my poverty is my best friend. He went on to complete his education as a physics graduate from the MCC College, Tambaram. And he joined the Free Church Mission High School in Kanchipuram in 1885 as a school teacher. Now he was an earning member and he was remitting money back to his family. And thus his life was continuing till the D-Day arrived. The turning point in Venkayya's life came in 1886. Living in Kanchipuram, he probably used to visit Mamallapuram quite frequently and did so on that day too. I have put two pictures here of Mamallapuram in those days, one by Alexander Ria in 1880 and one of Ganesh Ratha in 1870. This is so that all of us can understand that the Malay of those days was very, very different from the way we see it today. It was not the green, easy to access touristy Malay that we just hop across to see now. We just go there to absorb the ethos or appreciate the buildings or sometimes study them in detail. But those days, even reaching Malay was a mammoth task. People often had to take a boat from Buckingham Canal to reach there. And then you can see most of the buildings were covered in rubble and sand. There were no paved pathways around. And it was really quite difficult to appreciate or admire these monuments, leave alone study them in detail. It was and of course the heat of Chennai. It was in this dusty, hot environment that particular day that Venkayya actually saw a foreigner trying to read inscriptions of a monument wall in Malay. This foreigner was Ernst Hulsch. He was a German scholar well versed in Sanskrit. Now going just a little bit of background. In India, the ASI had been established in 1861. And very soon they knew that there are zillions of inscriptions in this country all over the place, more than 50% of them being in South India. So ASI obviously felt the need to have professional epigraphists who could come study these inscriptions and decipher them so that more could be done with this information. It was with this intent that Hulsch was invited by ASI to come and join the department in Madras and pursue his study of South Indian inscriptions. As a step towards this, he was probably trying to study some inscriptions in Mamallapuram that day when Venkayya actually met him. Now, obviously, this curious sight propelled Venkayya, who quickly hopped across to Hulsh and probably talked to him. He might have well read a couple of inscriptions quickly. And then this really impressed Hulsh. He was impressed by the enthusiasm and eagerness of this young fellow and his scholarship of both scripts and scriptures. And he quickly offered him a job in ASI. Now, this is something which is unbelievable. In today's context, if you want a job, you have to apply with your CV, go through several tests and interviews, then finally meet the HR department, discuss your pay package, and after all this, there may be a slim chance that you will get an appointment letter. 90% of the time, you may get an automated reply to say that the post has been filled. Whereas look at this, in this dusty, hot environment, two people from totally diverse cultural and economic backgrounds meet, and one of them is actually offering the other a job. Of course, Venkayya knew that he had to do more with this opportunity. But he had his own commitments. He was a school teacher, and academic year was in progress, so it's not like he could just ditch his old job and come. Moreover, as I already told you, he was a family man, he was supporting his family. So he weighed all the pros and cons of these issues and decided to take up Hulsh's offer almost a full year later. And in April 1887, he decided to join ASI. Those days, Hulsh was stationed in Bangalore and Venkayya joined him there. Now, there are two versions to this story. Some records say that Hulsh was already a chief epigraphist of ASI when he met Venkayya. Others say that he was probably a consultant or something like that, and it was only in November 1887 that Hulsh, along with his assistant Venkayya, was appointed officially and inducted into the ASI. Whatever the case may be, an amazing partnership was forged, and the duo were complementing each other and contrasts in certain ways. On one hand, you had a student. He was eager, enthusiastic, extremely well versed in scriptures and scripts, and owing to his Brahmin orthodox lineage, he had access to the innermost garbhagrahas of temples, where he could walk across and read the inscriptions. On the other hand, you had a professional epigraphist who was equally knowledgeable in the scripts and scriptures of our country, but had a Western worldview of things. He didn't really understand Indian religion, culture or society, but he was a professional. He knew how inscriptions had to be read, stamped, documented, studied. Together, they formed a formidable partnership which went on to do some amazing work. In fact, their discoveries can almost be called epochal. Right from the beginning, the duo took off and started studying inscriptions from Mamallapuram, Kanchipuram and the areas around. And very quickly, they were able to establish the lineage of Pallava dynasty and to categorically state that this dynasty were the authors of the monuments at Mallai and large part of Kanchipuram. Imagine till then, it was not even known that Pallavas were responsible for building Mallai. Their monuments were actually attributed to some Kurumbas or Kadamba dynasty, etc. till Venkayya and Hulsh came along. Subsequently, Venkayya also recorded the Tantivarman inscription from the Pathasarthi temple at Triplicate. Along with a few other inscriptions, these were published in what came to be known as the South Indian Inscription Series. The volume 1 of this was published in 1890 by ASI. The duo also started the practice of annually publishing this series every year, and we have almost 35 volumes of South Indian inscriptions available to us today. From Pallavas, we move on to Cholas. Now, all of us have heard of and know about Rajaraja Chola. No mean thanks to the Ponniyin Selvan series which hit our screens a couple of years ago. Rajaraja Chola is our historical role model, hero. Many of us would like to emulate him and be like him. And what is his greatest achievement? Building the Brihadishwara temple, the monumental, gorgeous temple, which many of us are striving to say should be included in the Wonders of the World series. But imagine there was a time when it was not known that Rajaraja Chola had built this temple. They actually thought that Karigala Chola had built this temple. And that is no fault of the Cholas, because they had left sufficient historic record on the walls of the temples and subsequently the copper plates. It's just that nobody had bothered to read or decipher these things before Venkayya and Hulsh landed in the Brihadishwara temple. And what a historic moment it must have been when Venkayya deciphered and realized that Rajaraja Chola built this temple and a piece of South Indian history was rewritten forever. Some of the other important inscriptions which Venkayya contributed to include the Tiruvalangadu copper plates. These are a set of 31 copper plates attributed to Rajendra Chola, found in the town of Tiruvalangadu and brought to the Chennai Museum. Venkayya deciphered and read them and realized that they are significant historic documents that provide valuable insights to the Chola dynasty, including their detailed genealogy. Another important inscription that he read are the Uttaramerur inscriptions, which talk about the process of election and democracy. They are very, very relevant to us today because they are hard facts which indicate that the governance or the form of government called democracy existed in India even in those times. They talk about the process of election, who can stand for election, who can vote, who can be selected, etc., etc., thus throwing much light on village administration of the Chola times. Thus this duo was coursing along, and then Hulsh decided that he wanted to resign from ASI and go back to Europe in 1903. Venkayya was then appointed as the officiating government epigraphist in Madras and then promoted as the chief epigraphist in 1908. This is a letter which John Marshall had issued to Venkayya inviting him to take over as the chief epigraphist. Thus he became the first Indian chief epigraphist of ASI. In his very first year, he set a record by visiting about 52 sites and copying approximately 800 new inscriptions. This is just an indication to tell you how proliferous and diligent he was in his work. And this is not just a ballpark figure. This is actually recorded by John Marshall in his annual report of epigraphy 1903-04. From there onwards, Venkayya went on to build the foundations of our history through his work, which involved studying and recording hundreds and thousands of stone inscriptions. Obviously, if he did 800 inscriptions in the first year, you can imagine how many he must have covered. He read the Pallava copper plates of Velur Palayam, Velvikudi copper plates of the Pandyas, and the Chola copper plates at Tiruvalangadu. He went on to successfully establish the lineage and genealogy of Pallavas, Cholas, and Pandyas. To digress a little here, we might wonder how he managed to do this. Because after all, we all know that most of the inscriptions only talk about land grants or grants of money. They hardly give personal details of kings. At most, they may talk about judgments or some tax reliefs or some whatever trade tariffs, etc. But most of these inscriptions actually had a few preceding stanzas called the Prashasti or May Kirti, which talked about the king, who he was and where he came from. It said that King A, son of King B, came from the ancestry King C, so on and so forth. And in his regnal year XXX, he did this. Now when Venkayya put together multiple such inscriptions of multiple kings, he was able to draw out the correlate all of them and realize which king came after which king ruled till what time, who belonged to which dynasty, etc. Thus giving us a very comprehensive account of our own history. He also studied the inscriptions of the Bana kings at Gudimallam and the Mangulam Tamil inscriptions, etc. Subsequently, he was asked to take over the ASI office at Shimla too, and he was actually balancing his time between the north and the south. He also did a lot of pan-Indian work at that time. He was responsible for the Sarnath expeditions. He put forth many proposals, and some of which were carried out in his time and some later. He also worked with Sten Konow to prepare the first catalogue of the ASI library in Shimla, which contained 30,000 volumes even then. He also was involved in writing and publishing the Epigraphia Indica volumes and numerous publications in national and international journals. We have almost 45 volumes of Epigraphia Indica as of today. If one were to take an overview of what is Venkayya's major contribution to our history, we can safely say that he reconstructed the history of Tamil. Just as Uve Swaminatha Iyer tried to chronicle Tamil history using Sangam literature as a source, so did Venkayya parallelly, using the evidence of inscriptions. In fact, he gave us an insightful understanding about the reigns of the various rulers, their administrative systems, land grants, revenue surveys, administration of criminal laws, dates of Alvars and Nayanmars, the irrigation systems followed by the kings, so on and so forth. In short, we got an overview of the political, social, economic and religious aspects of South Indian society and about the evolution of temple architecture and the development of South Indian languages and literature through Venkayya's works. Then of course came the award. In recognition of his immense services to South Indian history, the title of Rai Bahadur was conferred on him in 1906 during the visit of George V. And very soon after, alas, came his end. He was already not in very great health and suffered from diabetes, and these frequent travels and camping to these remote sites and working there, where the environment was not probably very clean and food may have been an issue, deteriorated his health further, and he contracted dyspepsia. And then he spent his last days at Mambalam, Madras, breathing his last on the early hours of 21st November 1912, when he was only 48. Alas, what a loss it was. At that time, the international community of epigraphists felt it was a great loss to them. On hindsight, we realize it is a great loss to us, our history. If only Venkayya had lived for another couple of decades, we might know far more about our own history, and our understanding of our past may be far different from what it is today. We can't finish without saying what they said about Venkayya at that time. It is to be hoped that other young native graduates would follow on Venkayya's lines and take up the neglected subject of South Indian epigraphy, said Ernst Hulsch, his first boss at ASI. In fact, in December 1912, Hulsch dedicated Epigraphia India Volume 11 to Venkayya with a full-page photograph facing the title page. A heavy and irreparable loss. From first to last, his life in the archaeological department was one of assiduous labor and devotion to duty, and his work throughout was characterized by sound, reliable scholarship, said John H. Marshall, his last boss, who was the director of ASI at the time when Venkayya passed away. Without him, South Indian history must have remained a sealed book, said K. A. Neelakanta Shastri, our own historian, who based many of his work on Venkayya's documents. Apart from this, Venkayya also collaborated and communicated regularly with Uve Swaminathan Iyer. As I already mentioned, Uve Swaminathan Iyer was trying to reconstruct Tamil history based on literature, and Venkayya collaborated with him frequently. Iyer also had very laudatory things to say about Venkayya. Then our famous poet Subramanya Bharati also wrote a fantastic verse about him when the Tiruvalangadu copper plates were discovered, and he had recorded them. All this goes on to show the immense respect that he commanded, not just amongst the international community, but amongst his own peers in India. Okay, that is fun. He was a great epigraphist. He discovered so many things. But what is its relevance today? Is a question that is bound to come to all of us. As I see it, Venkayya taught us two very important things which are relevant to us even today. First of all, he made us understand that inscriptions are the foundations to understand our own history and the past. Till then, we were only relying on literary resources, not just from our language but sometimes from the neighboring states. Hard facts put in stone and copper can form the basis and foundation of understanding our history was given to us only by Venkayya. And at that point of time, epigraphy was a Western concept, a fledgling profession. By taking it up as his own, he made us realize that it can form a core component of our own history and understanding. Secondly, what we had at that time was a Western worldview of things. It was Venkayya who brought an Indian understanding or an Indian worldview to our own culture and past. He affirmed the fact that indigenous scholarship is required if we have to understand the history and culture of our own country. While the West may be qualified and technically very competent, their worldview is different. While we can take all the professional aspects from them, the insights have to come from us. And these are two facts that are very, very relevant even today. It is only befitting that such a great scholar be commemorated by having an award instituted in his name. We are deeply thankful to Miss Sunita Madhavan, his great-granddaughter, for instituting this V Venkayya Epigraphy Award to honor individual contributions in the fields of Indian epigraphy and asking THT to take over the administrative responsibility of handling this award. We are extremely happy to say that we have completed 4 years, and very soon our 2025 awardee will be receiving his award. With this, I'll be asking Ravishankar, who will come over here to tell you all about how this award is instituted, what is the process for nomination selection, and an introduction to our awardee this year. But before that, I'd like to give you a very brief introduction to our chief guest today. Our chief guest today is Dr. T S Ravishankar, retired head of the Epigraphy branch of ASI. Joining the department as an epigraphical assistant, he worked there for almost 35 years in various positions before rising to become the head. While in service, he participated in many archaeological excavations including Ayodhya. He visited Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, to study Nagari inscriptions there. He edited many reports, contributed numerous articles, presented many papers and delivered lectures both within and outside the country. He is a lecturer in epigraphy and paleography at Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyaya Institute of Archaeology, Greater Noida. He is also a visiting faculty at Indian Institute of Heritage, Noida, and Nalanda University, Rajgir, Bihar. Numismatics is his special interest. He worked as an expert numismatist from the ASI, Delhi. His speciality is early Indian coins. Currently, he is the chairman of Place Name Society of India and executive member of ESI and SINS, which is South Indian Numismatic Society. He was awarded the Dr. P.L. Gupta Silver Medal for his contributions to South Indian numismatic studies. Another little known facet by him is the fact that he sings very well. Maybe given a chance he can share a few notes with us. With this, I step down and invite Ravishankar to take over the stage.
Good evening, everyone. Gauri gave a fiery oration on Venkayya. I don't think I can match her fiery, mood or delivery. I'm little actually slow and okay. So please, do not expect me to match her performance, okay. But anyhow, I have the great, honor of, in fact, introducing, or actually talking about, in fact, Dr. Shrinivas V Padigar. To begin with, in fact, Mrs. Sunita Madhavan and Tamil Heritage Trust are immensely delighted that Dr. Shrinivas V Padigar, eminent Kannada epigrapher and historian, is the winner of the V Venkayya Epigraphy Award for 2025. It's one of a kind of award was instituted by Srimati Sunita Madhavan, great granddaughter of Sri Venkayya. As you all aware, the award commemorates Rai Bahadur Sri V Venkayya, a pioneering epigrapher who was the first Indian chief epigraphist to the government of India. The annual V Venkayya Epigraphy Award aims to recognize exceptional individual contributions in any Indian language towards the discovery of unrecorded inscriptions, the interpretation of inscriptions from a refreshingly new perspective, the dissemination of the wealth of knowledge contained in them through conventional as well as digital media, and the preservation of epigraphic resources for posterity. We are in the 4th year of the Venkayya Award. As I said, in fact, the Venkayya Award was instituted in the year 2022, and the first winner of V Venkayya Award was Dr. Y. Subbarayulu, and the second year, in fact, was won by, the award of the second year was won by Dr. P.V. Krishnamurthy, and Dr. V. Vedachalam was the winner of the third V Venkayya Epigraphy Award for the year 2024. And now we have Dr. Shrinivas Padigar, was selected by a jury consisting of experts in epigraphy, history, archaeology and heritage from nominations received between 2023 and 2025. So we have taken in for nomination received during 3 years, 2023, 2024 and 2025. The jury of the expert jury were consisting of Dr. V Vedachalam, Senior Epigraphist, Retired Department of Archaeology, Government of Tamil Nadu, Dr. A.K. Singh, Professor, Retired, School of Studies in Ancient Indian History, Culture and Archaeology, Jivaji University, Gwalior, Dr. S.K. Acharya, Historian, Epigrapher and Archaeologist who retired from Ravenshaw University, Cuttack. He was also one of the members of 2022 award jury. And finally, Sri Jay Prakash, he retired as a Director Epigraphy from Archaeological Survey of India. So these are the four jury who in fact selected among the nominations received between 2023 and 2025, selected Dr. Shrinivas V Padigar as the most in fact suitable person to win the award for the year 2025. In selecting Dr. Padigar for the award, the jury cited the quality of his research, scholarship, the number of inscriptions he studied, interpreted and reinterpreted, the significance of his publication, and his interdisciplinary approach to research and publication, encompassing epigraphy, art history, archaeology, numismatics, and religious studies. The award consists of a citation and a prize of 50,000 rupees. Dr. Shrinivas V Padigar is a distinguished historian, epigraphist, and archaeologist whose scholarship has profoundly shaped the understanding of India's early historical and cultural narratives, especially in the Kannada region. He is currently the Director, Academic and Research at the Mythic Society, Bangalore. Under his stewardship, the Mythic Society held a national seminar on early Kadambas and their times in March 2025. Let me give you a small introduction about Mythic Society. This is perhaps in fact is the Karnataka's answer to the Asiatic societies which were in Bombay and Calcutta and other places. So Mythic Society is a 116-year-old organization founded in 1909. One can say it was Karnataka's response to the Asiatic societies. Eminent historians, researchers, epigraphists, linguists like Dr. J. F. Fleet, Dr. B. L. Rice, Dr. Juo Dubrail, Dr. John Marshall, Fred Goodwill. Fred Goodwill has a school named after him in Bangalore, and he is also considered to be an expert on 3 languages, Kannada, Tamil and Telugu. Professor S. Krishnaswamy Iyengar, T. A. Gopinath Rao, Mahodpadhyaya R. Narsimhachar. In fact, I would consider R. Narsimhachar as the Venkayya for the B.L. Rice. As Venkayya for Hulsh, Narsimhachar was for Dr. B.L. Rice. And V. Venkayya himself, he must have been, his association must have been only for 3 years because this was established in 1909 and Venkayya died in 1912. So it must have been for 3 years. In fact, I would like to go through the records of Mythic Society and see what kind of interaction Venkayya had with the Mythic Society or Mythic Society had with the Venkayya. H. Krishna Shastri and many others were closely associated with the Mythic Society. Many other publications have appeared in the quarterly journal of the Mythic Society. Mahatma Gandhi, Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore and many other eminent Indians have spoken here. Sir C. V. Raman, another Nobel laureate, was an honorary president of the society for a long period. Dr. Padigar had an illustrious academic career spanning over 3 decades at Karnataka University, Dharwad, where he rose to become professor and chairman of the Department of Ancient Indian History and Epigraphy. He guided 13 research students to their doctoral degrees. A gold medalist and a PhD from Karnataka University, Dr. Padigar has held several prestigious fellowships, including the Infosys Foundation Karnataka Chair at Bori, Pune, a senior academic fellowship from ICHR, and a Charles Wallace Fellowship in the UK. He has also served as a visiting fellow at institutions like Deccan College and the University of Edinburgh. He has examined and edited and critically reinterpreted over 400 inscriptions, especially from the early Chalukya period. The result was his magnum opus, Inscriptions of the Chalukyas of Badami, published by ICHR in 2010. I cannot help, in fact, mention here a corresponding, in fact, book published by ICHR in 1988 of the Inscriptions of the Pallavas by T.V. Mahalingam. That book ran over about 800 pages. So this is the book which I talked about, the Inscriptions of the Chalukyas of Badami, which I bought in 2015. So let me, in fact, give my own personal, in fact, experience with reading this book. As a part of preparation for the site seminar of Badami, Pattadakal, Aihole and Mahakuta in January 2016, I studied this book, made presentation to my fellow travelers, prepared a guide list of inscriptions in each of the monuments and temples, a Google map of the fine places of the inscription based on the table given in the book. Dr. Padigar's research has shed new light on Shaiva and Vaishnava traditions, educational institution, temple architecture, and sculptural iconography in the Deccan, often drawing an inscriptional and archaeological evidence. His other significant publications include Vishnu Cult in Karnataka, which was also his doctoral thesis, as well as several works in Kannada, that is Introduction to Archaeology, Epigraphical Sources of Indian History and Inscription, Architecture and Art of the Chalukyas of Badami, and numerous edited volumes, including Pratna Kirti and New Facets of Indian Art. His writings explore themes ranging from narrative sculpture, such as the Panchatantra and Jataka depiction, to socio-religious practices and artisanal histories. He has delivered invited lecture across India and presided over national academic conferences. In recognition of his pioneering work, he has received Rajashri Dr. Virendra Hegde Award 2023 and the Dr. B.R. Gopal Epigraphist Award in 2016. With a rare blend of methodological precision and visionary insight, Dr. Padigar remains a leading voice in the fields of Indian epigraphy and ancient cultural studies, an enduring influence and a deserving winner of the V Venkayya Epigraphy Award 2025. Last but not the least, so he is going to receive another honor, in fact, very shortly on August 3rd. The Mythic Society, for which he, in fact, acts as a director, is going to hold a meeting, which is where he is going to be presented with a celebratory volume, okay, and presided by Dr. T S Ravishankar once again, and many other, in fact, like Dr. C.B. Patil is his old friend. He is one of the conveners of this fest shift, that is the celebratory volume. So it's a very rare coincidence that, okay, in successive weeks, okay, you receive some recognition or award or celebration. Thank you very much.
I now request Professor Swaminathan, our esteemed chief guest, Dr. Ravishankar, and our distinguished awardee for the evening, Dr. Shrinivas Padigar, to come up on the dais for the award presentation. We request Professor Swaminathan to give a small memento to the chief guest. I now request Dr. Ravishankar to deliver his chief guest's address for the evening.
Good evening, dear enlightened audience of this august gathering. I am at a loss what to speak and what to talk. All my previous speakers have sufficiently echoed many aspects in all depth and dimension to today's program. Yes, I wish to give a personal touch to this talk. Respected Professor S. V. Padigar, sir, Professor, sir, I deem it a great honor to be part of this award function. I am highly beholden to the authorities for considering me, Professor S. Swaminathan, sir, for being, because all the way inviting from Bangalore, there are so many enlightened great epigraphists in Chennai or other parts of the country. I don't know how the choice fell on me to be invited for this. Anyway, I am highly thankful to Sri T Ravishankar. Only S is missing, otherwise we both are same. Both Ravishankar, Tamil Heritage Trust, for inviting me to this prestigious function. I am extremely delighted that my dear friend and scholar par excellence and epigraphist of great eminence, Professor Shrinivas Padigar, has been nominated for this V Venkayya Epigraphy Award for 2025. We are highly grateful to Srimati Sunita Madhavan, a great granddaughter of Sri V Venkayya, for instituting this award as mentioned, first of its kind. See, there are many awards, but exclusively recognizing the contribution in the realm of epigraphical studies, I think no award exists. Really, it's great for us to be awarded each year to an epigraphist of great eminence. The most fascinating aspect of this award is it transcends all regional barriers. It is of pan-Indian nature. It is an epigraphist on all India basis. He may be from Karnataka, somebody may be from Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, anybody. It is the recognition from all India perspective that is taken note of while awarding this award. Indian subcontinent is known for its rich epigraphical wealth. Inscriptions are written in various scripts and languages far-flung in time and space. Epigraphy branch, one of the prestigious premier organization of the ASI, was established in the year 1887, headed by E. Hulsch, a great German scholar and epigraphist, under whose tutelage and training Rai Bahadur V. Venkayya bloomed as an epigraphist of par excellence. Subsequently, he became the first Indian government epigraphist to take over the reins of epigraphy branch. Though in the initial years the focus was on Tamil Nadu and other parts of South India, subsequently, especially I'm talking about the epigraphy branch, in the year 1945 onwards, hundreds and thousands of inscriptions were copied from different parts of India. It was a period of entire country was agog with epigraphical explorations and copying of inscriptions. Not only branch, different departments of universities, state archaeology department, and many freelance epigraphists also were engaged in copying and studying inscription. So in fitness of things, award is given to epigraphist who has done immense contribution to epigraphical studies, making efforts in furthering the cause of epigraphical and paleographical studies. I am very proud to tell that I worked and headed the branch where great savant and doyen like Rai Bahadur V. Venkayya strode like a colossus in the realm of epigraphical studies. On this occasion, we pay rich tributes to V. Venkayya and his successors who shaped the destiny of epigraphical studies. The unbroken tradition of Guru Shishya Parampara, this I would like to insist. There is a train, successive batches were trained and taught. Could be seen in the epigraphy branch. We see the legacy of epigraphical knowledge passed on from generation to generation. Every branch of study has its own nuances. Epigraphical study is a very specialized area and it demands multidisciplinary approach. In fact, it's vast, as vibrant as archaeology. Unfortunately, in the recent years, epigraphical studies is not enjoying the status it deserved. Efforts need to be made to revive, rekindle interest, especially among younger generation, so that we can create a second and third line of young epigraphists, young potential epigraphists, are emerging what we need to create job opportunities for them to sustain interest in epigraphical studies and enrich our glorious past. Very few pursue as a passion. Many need a profession to pursue their passion. We simply say, we take it as a passion. It is not always. See, for example, successive students are emerging from calligraphy, epigraphy, and numismatics, Indian Institute of Heritage. They look for some internship somewhere to continue their interest, further their cause of studies. So then only we can sustain interest in them. Otherwise, it becomes even to find a juries at times to whom to recognize. Such awards like V Venkayya awards not only a great recognition for their contribution, and it inspires them to contribute further to the epigraphical studies a great way and train young scholars. Tamil Heritage Trust has been doing yeoman service in promoting heritage studies. It's needless to say, Tamil Nadu stands number one as far as epigraphical, architectural, and sculptural heritage. I am proud to say that THT has taken lead in processing this epigraphy award every year. In the first year, I was one of the jury in the nomination process. All the officials and authorities are very ably handling. My kudos to all. Professor S. V. Padigar, I feel extremely happy and honored that I have been asked to associate myself in this function. My association and acquaintance goes back to late 70s. And then onwards, we have been interacting and on different occasions. The common platforming being the Epigraphical Society of India, his mentor Professor S.H. Retd and Dr. K.V. Ramesh were very close associates. And through them, we had many occasions to interact with each other. And he himself took lead to arrange Epigraphical Society of India conference many times. I think it's divine providence. Here again, I am to share this most joyous and jubilant occasion. And he is crowned by Professor S.H. Retd, and he has become a multifaceted personality, but from art history to history and epigraphical studies. Apart from his innumerable articles conveying wide range of subject on Indology, as just mentioned, his magnum opus is Early Chalukya Inscriptions. He has trained many young scholars in various aspects of Indological studies. Under his stewardship, as Director of Academics and Research, he is giving new dimension to the Indological studies at the Mythic Society. So on this occasion, I heartily congratulate Professor S. V. Padigar, and this award has added one more feather to his cap. He richly deserves this award for his contribution to South Indian studies. Vriddhirastu. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ravishankar, for your address and the kind words about THT. I now request our distinguished awardee to present the award lecture for this evening on his work Beyond the Text, Insights from Early Chalukya Inscriptions.
You can keep pressing the space bar.
Okay, changes, is it? This one also will be down arrow. Good evening to everybody who have gathered here for this distinguished function of giving an award in the name of the great epigraphist savant, Shri V Venkayya. Very senior scholars are here, including the founders of the Tamil Heritage Foundation, like Swaminathan sir. There are my old friends also, and ever good friends also, like T S Ravishankar, Shankar Babu, Gopu, T Ravishankar, and so many others, youngsters, young faces also I am seeing here in the gathering. To begin with, I start saying that with great humility, I accept this award instituted in the name of great epigraphist V Venkayya. I would not repeat here what has been already said about in many words by earlier speakers about the contributions of V Venkayya and his greatness for his times. I only will reiterate here that he was the man who actually rescued South Indian epigraphy, which was going into the back seats because of the great scholarship in Sanskrit, which was shown by great German epigraphists like Hulsh, Fleet, and others. I have chosen today to, I also thank the jury for having considered me fit to receive this award for this year. As a part of this function, I have chosen to speak on a subject very dear to me, the Chalukyan inscriptions, about which I have produced a volume published by the Indian Council of Historical Research, Southern Regional Center, Bengaluru. This failure of voice is because of my taking late lunch at 4 o'clock. Okay, sorry for that. The Chalukyan inscriptions are in large numbers, in fact. Though normally we count about 170 inscriptions, which can be directly ascribed to the Chalukya kings themselves, through copper plate records or stone inscriptions for that matter. But in reality, there are many more which do not mention the kings, but are belonging to that period and are very significant for understanding the happenings of the Chalukya period. So, I begin with this first inscription, which is quite famous in the annals of Indian history, which was issued by the first independent king of the Chalukya dynasty, namely Pulikeshi I. It is written at a very, you can say, impregnable place, and it had hid itself for quite long time because of its location itself. Even today, if you want to see that, it's very difficult to reach that spot without a guide taking you to that spot. I myself, though I lived nearly 3 years in Badami, find it difficult to go again there without the assistance of a helper. Now, this inscription I am showing not just because it is the first inscription, but we have missed something about this inscription. Okay. I have rounded off 2 areas there with a circle. The main inscription which is shown there on the right side is in the bigger circle, actually, at a cliff which is about 40 to 50 feet high from the ground level. You have to see it from the opposite side because there is a very deep ditch in between. And if you stand there, you will not be able to see the inscription. So you have to stand on the opposite side rock and see is with much difficulty. Okay, it is in fact an adventure on the part of the epigraphists to have taken a stampage of that in early 1940s when it was discovered. That was R.S. Panchamukhi, one of the great Karnataka epigraphists we know of. In fact, a person was placed in a cradle, and from above, you see that the cradle was taken down. Then from the opposite side, it had to be pushed to reach the wall to copy it. Otherwise, the cradle was away from the cliff surface itself. It could not take a stampage. So we had the attendant with us who had taken this stampage actually, and he was narrating often to us how this stampage was taken. The missing thing about this inscription, I would say, is a very small inscription that is there in the lower circle, smaller circle. It mentions Shri Tatvarthan. Okay, it mentions Shri Tatvarthan. When I was in Badami as a curator, I had a lot of opportunity to go around and see every piece of rock there, to locate small inscriptions also. And I found that this name is occurring repeatedly at least 7 to 8 times in that area which we call North Fort, at the capital of the Chalukyas. And it is written in such locations where fortifications were done by Pulikeshin I. Okay. And with this, which is apparently a title, Tatvarthan is a title, apparently you can see that. The name is associated, and that name is Koli Manchin. Okay. Koli Manchin. Koli Tatvarthan. That is how it is written at other places also. Okay. So, this is an interesting thing. Since it is very near that this inscription of Pulikeshin I dated 543, I would associate that as a craftsman's inscription who was responsible for writing this inscription. Okay, this is one of the missing points I wanted to stress here. Of course, it's written in very beautiful Anushtup verses. Satyashakavarsheshu Chatushateshu Panchashashti Yuteshu Shri Ashwamedhadiyajnanam Yajva Shrauta Vidhanatah Hiranyagarbha Sambhutos Chalikyo Vallabheshwarah Naradarindra Vatapim Majayam Bhutaye Bhavah Adastat Uparishtatcha Durgameta Tachikarat. So the construction of the fort, which is invincible from above and below, that has been mentioned there. And it is the first inscription we have of the Chalukyas. And for the 543 would be the beginning year, according to me, of the Chalukyas. Though some people assign it at 540, we should begin with this inscription only. That would be the appropriate date for that. This was the extension of the Chalukya Empire at its peak, extending right from the Narmada in the north, because Pulikeshin II had defeated Harshavardhana, as we know, coming down up to Kaveri, accepting the Pallava land. Though they had defeated it, they had not made it a part of their empire. So this is a very large area which was under their control. In between, of course, there were other rulers like Gangas were there. Then the Kadambas were there in earlier part of their rule. And Adupas were there in Canara region. They were there, but they had all accepted, at least nominally, the suzerainty of the Chalukyas of Badami. I don't know how far you will be able to see what is there. This is a 3D image of the inscription of Pulikeshi II, 634 CE it is dated. And in the Mythic Society we have now the facility of making 3D images of the inscriptions. In fact, almost all the available inscriptions of Bengaluru have been, you see, documented now, and they are available with the society as well as on the website for readers. The advantage of this 3D imaging is that you can read with clarity the letters, which sometimes may not be as well visible as in this image, so far as the stamp pages are concerned. Okay, so that is it. But I should mention here that this is done with a simple camera. Okay, simple camera, and it took about 1.5 hours for me to get it done with the help of a photographer, not with the Mythic Society. Okay, it was done independently, but it is a very, very useful one. In fact, I was able to read from this an unread last letters, which is Nagasthana is mentioned there. Okay, Nagasthana is mentioned there, which had not been read properly in the earlier versions. And I'm showing you here the part of the third cave inscription at Badami. This is the only cave at of the Chalukyas rather to have a foundation inscription. So that inscription is written beside a Varaha image in the cave. It is the largest of the caves and the most beautiful of the caves at Badami also. And there are two, you see, faces which are interesting, I think having some bearing on the history of cave architecture and the history of the Chalukyas also. So the first part is Layano Mahavishnu Grahamati Daivam Anushakam Atyadbhutam Karma Virichatam Bhumi Bhago Paryantatishaya Darshaniyatamam Kritva. So here the composer is saying that, you see, that a great cave has been created which is beyond the capacities of humans and gods on the surface of the earth. And what I am feeling is that he is actually referring to the existence of earlier caves at this spot. So Bhumibhaga is referring to is that the very hill at Vatapi in which you see this cave is excavated. And this one is the dated cave, which is 578. And there are two more caves at a lower level than this, which are of a smaller scale. And I feel that those two caves were already existing when this cave is being excavated. Likewise, in the second phrase, Jeshtaya Asmat Bhratre Kirtivarmane Tat Punyopaya Falamaadityagni Mahajana Samakshama Udaka Samaksham Udaka Purvam Vishranim Asmat Bhatra Sushushani Yat Phalan Tanmahyam Sat Iti. Actually, Mangalesha has written this inscription at the time when, you see, Kirtivarman first is alive and he is the ruler. It was the 12th regnal year. In fact, of the same date, we have an inscription of Kirtivarma first, a copper plate inscription issued from elsewhere, from a place called Godachi. Okay, same date as that of this inscription, same day rather. Okay, but here he is saying something interesting, that, you see, whatever punya comes to me from this excavation of this Vishnu cave should go to my brother, Kirtivarman first. Why is he saying that? That is a thing which is interesting. To me, it appears that Kirtivarman still did not have a male offspring at this time. Okay, that is the reason why you see he is offering this. I don't know whether he had in his mind that he may not have a offspring at all, that the rulership may come to himself because of that, and it did happen, we know it. Though Pulikeshi II had been born, he was too small to accept the responsibility of ruling, and Mangalesha had to take over at that time. Okay, so that kind of a thing I am feeling here being suggested by this particular phrase from the inscription. I will select another interesting statement that repeatedly occurs in the inscriptions of Vijayaditya, and that statement is said in the inscriptions about an achievement that was made by Vijayaditya as a prince when his father Vinayaditya was the ruler. So around 685 in Vinayaditya's reign, we first come across the reference to the conquest in the north. So it is said that Vinayaditya conquered the king of Uttarapatha. And Vijayaditya adds that he carried the lead further to defeat the Uttarapatha king, and he brought the regal insignia of that king, which included Ganga, Yamuna, Palidhwaja, etc., which are mentioned here. And this is an interesting reference that occurs in the inscriptions from 685 onwards. Okay, I am showing you here an interesting reflection of that in the monuments of the Chalukyas. In the caves in Badami, or in the early temples of the Chalukyas, structural temples of the Chalukyas, those existing in Badami like Upper Shivalaya, Lower Shivalaya, etc., you do not find the representations of Ganga and Yamuna. So, after the conquest of this, suddenly you will notice that Ganga, Yamuna are appearing on the temple walls, pillars, etc. And the one I am showing here, the large image of Yamuna, comes from that famous Ladkhan temple. Okay, this is the largest image of Ganga we have in the Chalukya dominions. But on a smaller scale, it repeats on the door frames of the temples after 685. So it is a kind of chronological marker for dating the Chalukyan temples. So if you have Ganga and Yamuna on the door frames, then you can assume that it is after 685. So that is an interesting thing which I wanted to show you. I also to tell you this new discovery. This discovery has taken place only recently. Last year it was published. It is a copper plate inscription issued by Vijayaditya in 717, but gives some very interesting information. This is the copper plate inscription, where we are told that Ganga Prince Dadiga, who was the son of Mushkara and grandson of Durvanita, and husband of Pulikeshi's daughter, that is specifically mentioned, that is Satyashriya's daughter, that is how she is mentioned, Sheela Bhattarika, she is referred to there. Her son Mahendra is referred to, and that Mahendra requests Vijayaditya to donate some village in what is now Vijayanagara district in Karnataka, formerly Ballari district, okay, in the region called Kogali 500, that was the administrative division, and that is referred to here. Now the interesting aspect is that you see normally in Chalukyan inscriptions or inscriptions of other kings in Karnataka, you do not find mention of the queen's name, and it is exceptional, I would say. If it is mentioned, then it would be very exceptional. Now, in this case, again, I would feel it is exceptional because this Srila Bhattarika is known from the writings of the Sanskrit critics that she was a great poetess in Panchali style. Panchali style was the one adopted by Bana, whose patron was Harsha, as we know. And her aunt was there, we know her very well, Vijaya Bhattarika. She was also a poet. She was specialist in writing in Vaidarbhi style, that the style of Kalidasa. Okay. Only few verses of these, poetesses have come down to us in the form of quotations that have been given as excellent examples of compositions by Sanskrit critics like, you have Rajasekhara, Kavya Mimamsa in 9th century. He mentions her as writing in Panchali style. Then Mammata is there, Kavya Prakasha. Then you have Hemachandra, Kavyanushasana written in 11th century. Then Sridhara Dasa is there. What is the Saranama Vasudhakara? Then that is 14th century. Then Sharangdhara is there, Sharangdhara Paddhati. He also mentions her. And one of the interesting verses quoted there is said to be a dialogue that had taken place at the time Srila Bhattarika was playing dice with Bhoja. It is, of course, a later reference, that is. We need not take that as a right reference. When you see, she makes fun of her husband's age. Okay, husband's age. And in fact, he retorts to that in his own way, that she also has become aged. Okay, so very interesting verses. I am not able to quote that. I was not immediately able to get that verse for using it here. But that is a very interesting thing. But really, according to me, it is the verse which was, created as a kind of dialogue between herself and her husband. Dadiga was her husband, Ganga Prince. Why I am mentioning that is that, Gangas had a very good tradition of, exercising in literary achievements. Like Durvinita, for example, had written, works. Shabdavatara had been written by him. He had translated the Vrihat Katha of Gunadhya into Sanskrit, that we know. And he had also written a commentary on Kirata-Arjuniya. So very great literary tradition is there among Gangas. And likewise, Chalukya's queens also had this tradition. Okay, so I would say that Srila Bhattarika is mentioned here not just because she is the daughter of Pulkeshi II, but also she is a great poetess. Earlier, the scholars had assumed that Srila Mahadevi, who was the queen of Dhruva, Rashtrakuta Dhruva, and of course a Eastern Chalukya princess, she was the Srila Bhattarika. But she is mentioned as Srila Mahadevi, not as Srila Bhattarika. Whereas this lady is mentioned particularly as Srila Bhattarika. So that is why we are associating her with the great poetess whose few verses have come down to us. I now come to the question of the presence of the script called Siddhamatrika, about which we have an expert here in Dr. T S Ravishankar. In the Chalukya context, what has happened is normally the script that has been used for writing inscription, whether in Sanskrit or in Kannada, the script is what we call Kannada Telugu script normally. Okay. But very rarely the Siddhamatrika has been used. Very, very rarely. In fact, you see, we have only two long inscriptions in Siddhamatrika written during the whole of the Chalukya period, which come after, of course, 650 AD. Okay. Otherwise, we have smaller inscriptions also. I will just show you how it is significant from the point of view of history of art as well as history of religion in the context of the Chalukyas. So these are few Siddhamatrika inscriptions which you find around between cave 1 and cave 2 at Badami. They are written at a very, very high place, and obviously they refer to the craftsmen who wrote their own names in that, and they are in Sanskrit also. Okay. Most of them end with Visarga, so that shows that they are writing their name in Sanskrit. Whereas in the case of Kannada inscriptions, we have the suffix na, that is first case suggestion, Raman, like that. Okay. Whereas in Sanskrit, it is Visarga ending one. So you have here, for example, names like Shri Bharatachandra, Shri Sharanachandra, Bhamachandra, Shivaputra, then Yashodevaha, then Devadasaha, Shri Gangoswami, and Maharate is also an interesting name that is occurring. And all these names are very significant if you put them in the context in which they are occurring. Okay. I will show you this cave 2, which you are seeing in Badami, and the Dwarapalas and the detail there. These Dwarapalas are carved in a way which is entirely different from the Chalukyan tradition of sculpting images. Okay. You will find a parallel to this in the region of Maharashtra, particularly Ellora, early Ellora, and Elephanta. For example, this one is from Elephanta. You can see that Dwarapala there, standing there. Okay. So, this is how the presence of Siddhamatrika characters in the context of Chalukyan art is suggesting that craftsmen from that region are coming here and doing some work. Okay, that suggestion is there. And this doesn't stop with that. You have also the Aihole Durga temple, where we have some interesting inscriptions. One of them is painted inscription yet to be read. Okay. Vekataka or something like that is written there. I have not been able to decipher it properly. The second one is Surendra Padaha, Shri Surendra Padaha, that is written there. Now, what is the significance of this inscription in Durga temple? We assign it to normally is around 700 AD now, at present. If you go through the images there in the Durga temple, many of them are done in the northern style. Like this one, for example, of Vishnu. Okay, it is in the Malava style of art, not the Chalukyan style as such. Chalukyan style images are also there in that temple, but these are some different, you see, artists' hands, you can say. A very good piece of evidence is there, suggesting that, again, if you have a Siddhamatrika inscription, you can associate with the tradition and art. You can search for that in the monument to see if anything is there of different style. Now, among the longer inscriptions of the Chalukyas, we have two of them. The earlier of them is 713. It comes from Alampur at a location called Devadroni. I will come to that aspect of Devadroni later on. But here you note that this is a biscriptal inscription, which means that two scripts have been used for writing the same inscription. Text is the same, but they are written side by side in two scripts. On your left side, looking at it on your left side, you have the Kannada script used for that. On the right side, it is the Siddhamatrika script. Now, what is the reason for which the same inscription is being written twice in two different scripts? What is the necessity that has made it possible? So, if you look into the content of that inscription, it actually refers to the construction of Niravadya Prakara Bandha by Bhagavat Ishanacharya at the instance of Vijayaditya in, of course, 713 CE. Now, this Bhagavat Ishanacharya is a term which we have to associate with the Pashupatas. Okay. The temples of Alampur, we know, are Pashupata temples. Because of the presence of Lakudisha, for instance, we have there. And apart from that, Pashupatas were normally addressed as Maheshwaras at that time. Vikramaditya first in 659 actually became initiated into this Pashupata religion. He became a Parama Maheshwara through a initiation ceremony called Shivamandala Diksha. That was in 659 exact date, 5 years after he had become king, which means that earlier he was following some other religion. Okay, so this whole Alampur complex is the result of the initiation of Vikramaditya first into Pashupatism. The first temple of the Pashupatas was actually erected by Vikramaditya first himself, what now goes by the name of Kumara Brahma temple there. Okay, I will show you this series of temples which are there in this complex. Okay, this is the Kumara Brahma temple which was erected by his Vikramaditya first, and by the side of it you have the Arka Brahma temple which was erected by his queen. Okay, that is there, and there is a group of 9 temples here, bigger temples here, which are associated in one way or the other with the royalty, you can say. Okay, the famous being the Balabrahma temple, which is the central one to the whole of the complex. We have a similar case in Patadakal also, where it is more clear why 2 scripts are used for again the same inscription. This is known as Patadakal Trishula pillar inscription. Okay, it is set up in between the famous temples of Virupaksha, Mallikarjuna and Sangameshwara actually, and all the 3 temples are mentioned in this inscription actually. And what you are seeing is the Siddhamatrika version of it, but it also has the Kannada script version of that. So the same text but written in twice on the same pillar. Okay. Now I am associating this again with the northern traditions because the person responsible for writing this inscription was Jnana Shivacharya. Look at the name, Jnana Shivacharya. And he says that he has come from the northern bank of the Ganga, from the region called Mrigathanika Hara, which I would identify with Sarnath. Okay, so he has come all the way from there, here, and he has settled here. And obviously he was a Shaivacharya, belonging to the tradition from there, which is of course Pashupata tradition. The Pashupatas had this interesting tradition of setting of pillars with the mark of Trishula. So this is called Trishula Mudrankita Shaila Stamba in the inscription. Okay, that was erected in between this temple. What is the significance of this? One thing, it represents the arrival of a northern person in this region. Second thing is, it is, you see, putting a stamp of Pashupatism on the whole site here by establishing this Trishula Stamba. In fact, once the Chalukyas adopted this Pashupatism, they also followed the tradition of erecting temples in their own names. Okay, so all the temples, whether you find it in Alampur or in Patadakal, the larger ones are named after one or the other of the Chalukya kings or queens. Okay, for example, the famous Virupaksha temple here, which was named after Loka Mahadevi, who was the queen of Vikramaditya II. Sangameshwara temple, which was named after Vijayaditya himself as Vijayeshwara. Okay. Then Trailokya Mahadevi also erected a temple in her name here. Okay, this is a peculiar Pashupata tradition which was linked with the idea of permanency of Punya in this world. Permanency of Punya in this world, or a measure of Punya in this world, because according to the Pashupatas, if you establish a linga in your name during your lifetime, or even after your death somebody does it in your name, then you will assume the form of Shiva himself. Okay, it is very clearly expressed in later inscriptions. that this happens. Okay, what we call sarupyata. Okay, but he will not become he will not be equal of Shiva in any case, but he will assume the form of Shiva, and he will be enjoying in the court of Shiva as long as his punya exists in this world, mundane world. Okay, that is the concept. Now, how to make it permanent in this world? The question arises. So you establish a name in your a linga in your name and arrange for its worship. Every day your name is taken there at the time of worship. So in that way your name becomes permanent in this world. So the assurance of your length of stay in the Kailasa is given by that means. So that is why you find so many temples being established, not only during the Chalukya period, but also during the later period, in Rashtrakuta period, as well as in the later Chalukya period and so on. And very clearly the inscriptions state about this particular concept. Okay, so the punya is the measure of your life in the next world. Okay, so that concept is there. So that way this is a very, very interesting thing which we notice in the case of the inscriptions of the Chalukyas. While I was studying the please stop me if the time is over, huh? No problem. When do the Kannada language, when does the Kannada language occur in the inscriptions of the Chalukyas? This is a question which is very interesting. It is also linked with Tamil also, we should remember. Okay. Now we have in Karnataka, we regard the Halmidi inscription as the earliest Kannada inscription, dated to 450. Okay. And if you look at that content of the inscription, you will notice that it is a non-Brahmanical regard. It is an honor given to a victor in the war. Okay. So what is called Balgalchu, washing of the sword. Okay, washing of the sword, that is what Balgalchu means. And that is an honor, and at that time the Veera or the hero is granted some fief, such as a village. Okay, so that is the purpose for which you see Halmidi inscription was written, which means that it was a non-Brahmanical record. Though certainly a Brahmin has composed it, there is no doubt about it, because it begins with a Sanskrit verse in praise of Vishnu. So the context of use of the vernacular is always, you see, when the question of the publicity of the record is required. So when you are having a public document, normally they write it in the vernacular language. Such as, for example, the early hero stones in Tamil language. They are hero stones, we should remember, commemorating the heroes, isn't it? Even those assigned to the Sangam age, for example, they are there. Here also in Karnataka, the same thing is happening. So Kannada occurs in non-Brahmanical context, grants, or what we may call public records, which are to be read and understood by the local people. Okay. For example, this one is a very beautiful Kannada inscription, I would say. A better inscription than Halmidi inscription, in the sense that Halmidi inscription is almost 90% Sanskrit. Okay. Whereas this is more of Kannada, you can see here. Swati Srimat Prithvi Vallabha Mangalesana Kalmanege Ittodu Lanjige Saram Devarke Ponirva Malakarange Adhavisadi Ittoda Nadivon Panchamahapatakanakum Edanaya Narakada Pudu Akum. Okay. So it just says that Lanjigesara is the village which has been given to the Mangalesha's cave. Layana, you know, that is here translated as Kalmane, stone house, that is what it means. So Lanjigesar is the village which had been granted, identified with Nandikeshwar. Then Devarke Punirva Malakarange. So the Malakar or the florist who supplies flowers to the god, for him, you see, half a visa is reserved from the income of that village. Visa is a coin. Okay, visa is a coin. So half a visa is reserved for him. So whoever destroys this, of course, will go to the seventh hell. That is what is written there. But since it is a grant given, grant or rather provision made for a Malakara, a florist, it had to be written in Kannada. It is not written in Sanskrit. This is on the same cave 3 where you have that earlier inscription which I showed you, which is in Sanskrit. Okay, 700 cave 3 inscription. This is Mangalesha's inscription itself, written around 600, but it is written in Kannada. So this is context when you see you are finding the Kannada language being used for this. So like that you see another inscription I am seeing here. Swasti Vijaya Vata Pradishtanada Shri Maha Chatur Vidya Samudaya Virchasirum E Ura Sammagarara Kavartiyan Vittar Dosham Gaidonge Dandam Nadol Kavartayadadum Illi Illa Untu Kolim Enon Panchamahapatakanakum Nidiyamara Padedon. So this is given to a leather worker, Samagara. Okay. It involves, you see, exemption of tax. Kavarte is a profession tax. Kavarte is a profession tax. And that profession tax was there for the Samagaras also. And that has been exempted here. So inscription is in Kannada. Okay. So that is how we can link the use of vernacular while writing the inscriptions. Now here also in Virupaksha temple, there is a wonderful inscription of Natasavya. And 2 inscriptions are there, one in Kannada and one in Sanskrit, praising the same person who was a dancer. Name was Achala, okay, and his epithet was Natasavya. Okay. So, Khyata Mahaprabhava Bharatagama Yukti Bahuprakarda Matinolella men a Natasavina Munte Yathokta Margadindi Teranirdudu Agratala Sancharememudidu ಎಂದು ಪೇಳ್ದಡೆ ಇನ್ನು ಆತನೇನ ಅರ್ಥಕಂ ನಟರೋಳ್ ಅಗಳಂ ಈ ಭುವನಾಂತರಾಳದೋಳ್ ದೇವಯ್ಯಗಳ ಮಗನ್ ಅಚಲನ್. Okay, that is how it is written, because I have tried to see give it in Tamil also, but it is in Tamil script, not Grantha script, so you will not have the exact pronunciations there. In any case, this particular inscription is very interesting, not only because it is in Kannada, but also because it is showing that by this time, the presence of dancers, the presence of Gandharvas, that is singers, and the players of musical instruments, they have all become, you see, part and parcel of temple celebrations, what are called Rangabhogas. Okay, so it has become part and parcel. In fact, you see, these are the first inscriptions which we have in Karnataka, which directly speak about the presence of these kind of things in temple activities. And I feel that the Pashupatas were one of the important sects responsible for this. Earlier, Pashupatas were more after yoga type, Ekantavasi and all that. But about this time, they have started residing amidst the people at large, particularly patronizing the temple culture as such. Okay, so that is how, see, these are becoming part and parcel of that. You can notice here that Bharatagama is mentioned here, that is Bharata's Natya Shastra is between. And he is saying that a person claiming to be a dancer should perform in front of him and show that this is Agratala, which is a technical word in Natya Shastra, and this is Sanchara. Okay, and he should say that yes, this is it. Then only that person will be recognized as a good artist. Okay, so that kind of a thing, expertise in Natya Shastra, that also is there. That means that what we call Bharatanatyam is already, see, quite famously going on in these regions, in these localities. Similarly, you have also this Sanskrit inscription in the name of the same person. Bharatanuta vachana rachana virachita natasevya simhanadena paranata madanda asti parihinam mado bhavatyeva natasevya bharata mata yuta patutara vachanashani prapatena kutilonnata nata shailaha sputitanata mastakaha patati achalan. Okay. So we just say that at the voice of the Natasavya, who is an expert in Bharata's Natya Shastra or whatever has been said by Bharata. Okay. In front of him, the opponent Nata becomes, you see, Malanda Hasti Parahi Namado. His mother, you see, gets fallen, just as the Vajraprabhat on a peak of hill, you see, brings down the peak of the hill. So that is what he is saying. So he is bowing down in front of him. That is what he wants to say. Okay. So it is in praise of that. But again, the expertise in Sanskrit also of these people is, you see, exhibited there. Then Shri Durgi Acharya Ramagan Valadeva Kratam Tananga, I think it should be Ananga, mistaken little Tananga. Varisagara Karagani, Sagandha Hasti Payoga, it may be Prayoga, Vidyadharan, E Rupa Madidan. It's a Kannada inscription now, who has done this beautiful Dwarapala image, almost in 3 dimensions in Patadakal. His name is Baladeva. He is the son of Durgi Acharya. Okay. And these Acharyas are craftsmen, as we know. Okay. So he is praising himself like as if he is Vidyadhara. And he has made this image, that is what he is written. So this is an interesting case of use of Kannada for, you see, praising oneself. And this is a new phenomenon that we notice in the Chalukya context, where the artists are, you see, trying to expose themselves as great artists, that they are capable, very skilled and all that. And they use, you see, various phrases for that purpose. Okay. And this feature, of course, continues particularly in Kannada, in Karnataka region. During the Hoysalas, you will notice so many artists will be saying that, see, they are the great artists, in front of whom the rival artists bow down and all that. Okay. And these 2 inscriptions are 2 well-known inscriptions from the Virupaksha temple. Both are written on 2 sides. One is on the north side and one on the south side. And in the north side, it is mentioning that during the reign of Vikramaditya, that is Vikramaditya II, the temple of Loka Mahadevi was made, which was Lokeshwara. And the artist responsible or the architect responsible for that was Sri Gunda Anivaritachari. Okay. And on the other side, it is Sarva Siddhi Acharya. It seems that 2 craft sutradharis actually worked this very complex set of buildings called Virupaksha and Mallikarjuna. And they have been honored by the king for their feat. And scholars had not properly understood the content of this inscription, according to me, because what it states is that these people were responsible for getting, you see, the professional tax on craftsmen exempted by the king. Balli Gavartayan Vittar. Gavartaya, I told you, is a profession tax. Balli Gavartaya is a family tax, actually. Balli is referring to the family lineage. So that tax has been, you see, exempted on the families of the architects who worked here. Okay, so that is what is mentioned here. Apart from saying that, giving this various titles, epithets that were conferred by the king himself for their great feat or achievement. Okay. And this is, of course, the inscription. Swasti Vikramaditya Shri Prithvi Vallava Mahadevira Degumalaman Madida Sutradhari Shri Gundan Anivaritacharige Mume Perjarapu Pattamum Tribhuvanachari Endu Pesarittu Prasadam Gaidar Binnanigala Balli Gavarta Illa. Binnani is the Tadbhava of Vijnani. Vijnani is a scientist. So these architects are also scientists. Okay. So there is a very common word which occurs in Kannada inscriptions. Binnanigala Balli Gavarta Illa. Balli Gavarta is the family tax is not there. that is exempted. That is how it is said there. Dosigana cover uldorge pariharam, except those who commit, you see, doshas, mistakes, who become eligible for danda. Others are exempt from this tax. Okay, that is what it is meaning. Shall I continue for another 5 minutes? Yeah. So this is a very interesting phenomenon which I should be sharing with you, because it is the result of my recent research. Okay. All of us are aware of this very famous site called Mahakuta near Badami, and it has one of the early inscriptions of the Chalukyas of Badami, written around 597, okay, in the reign of Mangalesha. Almost 3 times I am referring to him here. Though we should have referred to Pulkeshi II, I would prefer to refer to him. Okay. This is written on a pillar which is now preserved in the Bijapur Museum in Gold Gumbaj complex. Okay. It was shifted by fleet to Bijapur during his time. This is a pillar which is, you see, addressed in the inscription itself as Pukamba, which means flower pillar. Okay, Pukamba, Pu is of course flower, as you know, in Dravidian. That is how it is addressed to in the inscription at the end. The inscription itself was issued by Mangalesha after he had completed his conquest of the Kalachuris. Okay. And he had looted the Kalachuris and brought the wealth. And actually he had thought of erecting a pillar of victory on the bank of Bhagirathi, which is Ganga. But somehow he changed his mind and thought it worthwhile to establish a pillar of piety, Dharmajaya Stamba, as he calls it, first, before doing the, you see, Shakti Jaya Stamba. So what he did was he erected this pillar and inscribed his inscription, and says that whatever wealth has been accumulated or snatched away from the Katachuri kings, that would go to the Devadroni. Okay. Kalasuridanam swam devagraha devadronyam gatamidam idancha dravyam swadevadronyam makuteshwaranathasya asmakam pitra jeshtena chopadattam shriyam vataka nandigrama pravriti dashagrama paribhogena saha samarpayadvan damyati. Okay. This is the statement that comes in that inscription. And what it says is that the wealth of the Kalachuris, which is my own, that is, he has, you see, by his conquest brought it, has gone into the temple Devadroni. I have put it as it is, Devagraha Devadroni, because the meaning is actually not very clear, and there is, see, different kinds of interpretations are there about this, and I have my own interpretation of that. Okay, so that should be entrusted to Makuteshwaranathas Devadroni, along with the enjoyment of 10 villages named Shyam Vadaka, etc., ending with Nandigrama, previously assigned by our father and elder brother. That is what he is saying that. So apparently he is referring to temples which are built in that locality by his father as well as his elder brother. That is very clear. In fact, the 2 major temples located in that place called Mahakuta are Makuteshwaranatha, which is referred here, Mahakuta, that itself comes from that. The other one is called Mudimallikarjuna now. Obviously, the original name has been lost. It may have been Kirti Varmeshwara, or something like that, according to me. Okay, they are the 2 major temples which are there. All others are very small temples. Okay, and many of them are Famsana temples, whereas these 2 are Dravidian style temples. Okay, and how should we understand these things? So Fleet, when he edited this inscription, he thought that this should refer to the idol procession. In fact, lexicon gives that meaning. Devadroni means idol procession. That is what it gives. But scholars have not been satisfied with that explanation, particularly because there are other references to the same usage of the same word, Devadroni, elsewhere. where it doesn't suit to describe it as a idol procession. Okay, they thought that it could be something like what you can say, kosher treasury. It could be one meaning, or it could be referring to a valley. Droni means a valley also in Sanskrit. Okay. Then Ramesh was a very important person who deviated from this understanding. He thought that this Devadroni is a boat temple, because Droni also has the meaning of boat. Okay, boat floating in the water. Okay. So he understood that this small temple which I am showing you, which is located there in the Mahakuta lake, the Mahakuta tank rather, it is called Vishnu Tirtha. This itself is the Devadroni, that is how he understood it. Okay. So this was a very important, of course, suggestion as such. But the problem is that it is referring to two Devadronis in their inscription. Twice it has been referred to. Okay. Then I looked at these sites, which are the royal sites of the Chalukyas, which are different from the typical Agrahara sites, like for example Ayhole, which is an Agrahara site. It is not a royal site as such, because very few inscriptions refer to the Chalukya rulers, despite the fact that many inscriptions are there which are not referring to the king during the same time. They are not referring to the king. Okay. So an alternative explanation, I thought, when I looked at the surroundings of these, is that Devadroni could actually mean valley of gods. Okay, it could be meaning valley of gods, because all these sites where you see, whether it is Alampur, for example, it is in the Malaprabha Valley, on the bank of the Malaprabha River itself, it is there. In fact, when that inscription which I showed you, 713 AD, was edited, the editor pointed out that it is found at a locality called Devadroni in Alampur. That is what he says. Okay, so this one, and I will show you another one also, very near this Mahakuta. All these have temples of considerable size, which could have been built only by the rulers, not by others. Okay, and these valleys of gods are, you see, the valleys with natural water resource, like this one, for example, is a perennial water source, Vishnu Tirtha, which is there, or a river for that matter, that also can serve as a Devadroni, on the bank of which you can have temples. And these temples could be erected by kings when they are living, or they can be erected after a person is dead in the royal family. Okay, that also is possible. And in this context, one interesting observation I made at Mahakuta, this is the Devadroni complex, I would say. The two larger temples are the ones called Mahakuteshwara and Mudi Mallikarjuna, which I have assigned to Pulikeshi the first and Kirtivarman the first. Then this is the site, you see, around which you see the temples. Okay, that Devadroni is here, valley is here, then you have the temples around that. And these temples are particularly in two styles, or rather three styles. One is the Dravidian style is there. The other one is, of course, Nagara style, as we call it, North Indian style. Third one is what is known as Vamsana style. And there is an interesting affiliation for Vamsana style temples. They are supposed to be memorial temples. In fact, Aparajita Vricha, which is one of the North Indian texts available to us on Vastu, it mentions that, you see, before constructing a Vamsana temple, you should invite the Pishachas and all those, satisfy them. And the ceremony is done in the night actually. Okay, and only after that you have to start building the temple. Okay, so it directly associates with memorial temples. So whenever you have Vamsana temples, it is not just an architectural form which we are seeing, but you are also seeing, particularly during this particular period, that it is a temple which has been erected after the death of a certain person. Okay, so that is what I am trying to associate, and you will find that good number of small temples are there. I would say all of them belong to royal family only. Okay, some person who is dead, a temple is erected, because I have explained the concept earlier of that punya. Okay, so that is there, and this Devadronis are royal sites for royal temples. Some of them built during lifetime, and sometimes built after the death of the person. Okay, there may be queens, princes, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is the Mudimallikarjuna temple at the same site. So this is a very interesting thing, is that this gateway has Pishachas as guards. So it is like that only, that memorial temples are there. That is what we have to take there. This is Hale Mahakuta, which is just, you see, about 3 kilometers away from this Mahakuta. There again you have a natural source, natural tank, and there are 2 temples, one of which is again Vamsana temple. Okay, so this is another Devadroni, I would say, of the early Chalukyas. This is Alampur Devadroni complex. So many temples built there, some of them during their lifetime, sometime after the death of the person. Okay. This is the site map of that. You can see that Devadroni, that is a river, dark one is a river, and that point is, you see, actually suggesting the Devadroni. This is the Devadronis. Unfortunately, now they have built a dam, modern dam, so that earlier this one has gone now. Okay, but inside it is totally dirty and you cannot go there now. That locality where the inscription was there, in fact, I could not trace that inscription at all now. Pattathikal again, though Devadroni name is not associated with that, it has to be a Devadroni because all are royal temples only, and they are on the Malaprabha bank, which has to be considered again as a Devadroni. I would consider it as the last of the Devadronis of the Chalukyas. Should I stop? I think your time is getting up. So, with this one I will just stop. Ladkal temple is a very famous temple, and once it was regarded as the earliest temple, assigned to 450 at Aihole, from which the other temple styles were said to have evolved. But modern scholarship does not agree with that. They say that it is not a temple earlier than 700. The question is that whether it is a temple at all. That also is a question that is arising. And an inscription is there on the wall of that, which seems to answer this situation. Okay? So it's a Kannada inscription. Swasti Arjana Samudayoditam Vrarya Purva Pradishtanada Shri Maha Chaturvidya Samuda Vainurvara Venamma Somayajigala Kottadanam Annaprasanakkam Pusavanakkam Chaulakkam Dharanam Upanayanakkam Samavartanakkam Gadyanam Madhuvigam Madhanakkam Pushividigam Yardu Gadyanam Chaturmasyakke 3 Gadyanam Agnishtomakke 5 Gadyanam Achilayam Ipparavage Kottudu. So what it is saying is that the various sanskaras which are there, like you see the annaprashana, for example, to the child, first feeding of rice. Then Pusavana is of course Simanto Unnayana as we call it. Chaula is also this one. Upanayana we all know. Okay. Then Samavartana also we know. For all these things it is 1 Gadyana fee. Okay. 1 Gadyana is it's a gold coin. That is the fee. Madhuvega Madhanakam, for marriage and all that, it is 2 Gadyanas. For Chaturmasya, it is 3 Gadyanas. For Agnishtoma, it is 5 Gadyanas. So this has been given to the Mahajanas of Aihole. That is what it is stating. Now why this is mentioned here, that this is the fee for this much is the fee for this, on this particular monument it is being written. It means that these, you see, functions are taking place in that monument, which you may call socio-religious. In fact, you see, in our Hindu tradition, it's very difficult to separate the social and religious functions. They are allied together, each other in one or the other way. So it is just like, I think, so Arkan temple is functioning something like a marriage hall of our days, Kalyana Mantapas, as we call them. Okay, something like that it is happening there. And fees are prescribed for that. Okay, and this Chaturmasya is, you see, when you see the ascetics, you see, that reside at one place during the rainy season of 4 months. They will reside at one place, you see. They will be moving from place to place and residing at that particular time at one place. And for that also this was used. That is indicated there. And Agnishtoma also could be done there. Okay, so fees are, you see, in a ascending order for different functions that you can see. Okay, so it means that it is a socio-cultural or socio-religious festivity monument for which you had to pay fees, like we do in modern Kalyana Mandapas. Relating to the monument itself, it is on the wall. Pardon? Yeah, in rivers you see the 500 Mahajanas of the Agrahar. Mahajanas, they always belong to Agrahar. Okay, they are Brahmins. Yeah. So that's a very curious explanation that it gives an explanation of this plan of the structure as well as the nature of the structure. It doesn't have a superstructure you can see there. Okay, so it is like a Kalyana Mandapa. It's not exactly a temple, but a monument meant for celebrating these various socio-religious functions. That is what is indicated by that. I think I should stop with that. This one interesting thing I should say. This is a narrative panel on the pillars of both the Virupaksha and the Mallikarjuna temples, which were built by the queens of Vikramaditya II. Okay. Interestingly, this particular narrative has attracted comments variously from various scholars, and differently it has been understood. But fortunately, it is inscribed in the sense that the characters which are there have been named in inscriptions there. Who is who? Like, for example, the one sleeping lady, you can see there, the reclining lady is identified as Ahalya. Okay? And the two persons who are sitting there on the extreme left side, to our right side, is Indra and Vajra. They are inscribed there. You can identify those figures, who they are. Okay? And in between, that is Ahalya again. Okay? Then in the lower panel, it is continuing, there is a mention of Indra. Tilottama is also mentioned. Okay. Then Ahalya and Indra, last one, those who are embracing, they are also inscribed. Okay. Now this is a very interesting thing. We know about the Ahalya and Indra story, isn't it? Gautama's wife Ahalya. So she meets with Indra, who dissuades in the form of Gautama. That is the popular story we know of. But here it seems as if you see she knew the thing but still committed that mistake. Okay. But what is interesting is the role of Tilottama in that, who is playing the role of a messenger between Indra and Ahalya. Okay. That is what is seen there. And it is a very interesting thing we have. Now, we have a 18th century writer who wrote a poem on Ahalya Indra story, in which you see actually Indra sends a yogini as a messenger to Ahalya to convey the interest of Indra, and the yogini succeeds in that. So Ahalya ultimately meets Indra. Despite knowing that he is Indra, she meets him, and whatever happens afterwards, we know it. Okay. And this is a 18th century work, but you can see the parallel in already the 7th, 8th century of that story. Okay. So that's a very interesting version we have of this Ahalya and Indra story. Okay. I think I will stop at that. Thank you very much for organizing this function, and particularly indebted to the organizers, Ravishankar. Two Ravishankars are here. Okay. And both of them are very kind, have been very kind to me to intimate regarding this particular award. And I thank all of you for the patience here, which you gave to my small words this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your very, very illuminating lecture, which I'm sure was only a very small peek into your vast, extensive body of work. With that, I now call upon our Professor Swaminathan to deliver the concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, sir. As she mentioned, it is only a very small part of your scholarship, and for most of us, at least I should say, in Tamil Heritage Group, that this is an area where we are not quite familiar with. You have thrown quite a lot of things to our attention, and I think we need a few decades to follow what you have mentioned, what you have informed us. Thank you very much, very kind of you. And Dr. Ravishankar for sharing this the event, and we are all very happy, and we wish you the very best. Thank you very much.
I now request Shri R. Gopu to present the vote of thanks.
I have no idea what to say. I feel happy that I am appropriately dressed for the occasion. We have, before our, as Ravi said, before our site seminar to Badami Patadakkal, we had a lot of preparatory lectures, including by Ravi, and about the Chalukyas. And obviously Padigar sir's work and all the older epigraphists like Fleet and Rice really informed us. At that time we are not that familiar with Venkayya. So it was, we come from the Pallava approach, we are in the Pallava territory. So we are wondering how to take, how to take in all of that. We got very interesting experiences because Maniyam Selvan sir, who is here, his father Maniyam had gone with Kalki when he wrote Sivagami in Sapadam, and very interesting perspectives we got on the, how the sculptors would have worked. What really made us appreciate the Chalukyas is how much respect they have given to the sculptors and put all the names of the artists. It's one of the very rare dynasties along with the Hoysalas. The Kannada dynasties have really done that wonderful work. Most of us, we don't know about most of the sculptors. But anyway, let's come to this event today. It was a enlightening, mind-boggling lecture, the award acceptance lecture. I think Venkayya would have been happy, delighted. He would have learnt a lot himself. He would have thanked, we need the spirit of Venkayya to come here and thank Dr. Padigar. We are extremely delighted that Dr. Padigar was chosen by the jury. So I would like to thank the jury first. I would like to thank Dr. Ravishankar for presiding over this. I would like to thank all of you for coming here, for all the people who gave the introductions, Gauri and Soparnika and Ravi for organizing all of this. Basically organizers don't get much credit, like the Stapatis in most of India, but they did a lot of hard work. I really appreciate them. For those of you who sent in nominations, hopefully you'll be considered. You are fighting against extremely heavy competition. Really, I think the decision was almost unanimous. It's like trying to get best batsman award while Sachin Tendulkar is a competitor. It's going to be difficult. So best wishes to the future people who apply for this award, and Srimati Sunita Madhavan for endowing this award and choosing Tamil Heritage Trust to give it, and actively participating in the first program. And I think she'll be seeing the video of this. And thank you all once again for coming to this program. We hope you attend more future programs of Tamil Heritage Trust. And thank you once again, sir, for a wonderful speech. I think Swaminathan sir said it, but it will take us decades to absorb this. Thank you all. Have a good evening. See you next time.